So welcome to whoever is watching this. And I'm Vivian from Joy in Movement, and I work in the field of somatics, and I am a passionate advocate for rest and self-care. And I'm here in conversation with Rosalyn Maynard, who is the person who, for me, started off this journey. And I think Roz and I met in 2015, most likely, although 2016 is the year we really started working together in a magical place in Devon, England, called Schumacher College, and on the Dartington estate, a very old estate with a medieval hall at the top of the hill and beautiful woodlands right on the banks of the River Dart, with the Dart hugging the estate. And Roz has been my mentor since we started working together, and a key person in developing my practice and my training and my knowledge, and inspiring me as well to live life fully and to appreciate every moment and to question a lot of beliefs that I might have held about how I do things, about myself. And she is so talented at drawing out, like an educator, right? To educate is to draw out, drawing out the essence of who you are, or what is important to notice in life. And I don't know, it sounds all very esoteric, but it's very much a space in which you experience more than you think about what you are experiencing. So it's really hard to put everything into words that Roz has taught me. But I thought I would, we would have this conversation for anyone who's interested in my background, certainly, in terms of who's the person who's been supporting and encouraging me, and the inspiration for what I share with my members and who attends my workshops. And just to get started a little bit, I'm going to read a little bit from her formal bio on her website. So Rosalyn Maynard is a somatic movement educator and a practitioner in body-mind centering. And she founded the School of Experiential Learning in Devon, called, also in short, and the acronym for it is SOEL, S-O-E-L. And she is dedicated to interdisciplinary learning through experience, movement, hands-on touch, art, symbol and pattern language, alongside the intellectual and conceptual ways of knowing. And one thing I find interesting about Roz, I'm going to allow her to complete her bio more. I'm not going to read out the full thing, but is that she is a shepherd. She's passionate about biodynamic farming and about remembering the practice of herbal medicine in animal husbandry. And this one I love in particular. She recently shared some of her research in this field in a presentation titled, "Are we intelligent enough to know how intelligent animals really are?" And I guess even though animals haven't been the subject of Roz's and my inquiry so much, although that's not right, because she does have a program, if you want to call it that, called The Invisible Animal, which I love, and in which nature connection and our inner animal is an integral part of that experience. I lost the beginning of my sentence, but anyway, that was a very long introduction to Roz, and I want to welcome you, Roz. Thank you for being willing to have this conversation with me and to answer some of the questions that I've had over the years that maybe I've already asked you and I've forgotten the answers to. And so I wanted to ask you if you wanted to add anything to what I read out, just so people have an idea of your practice. If there's anything you want to add about who you are and how you show up in the world.
Well, I think what I really want to say is thank you for such an introduction. I just really felt very touched listening to you describing how we met, where we met, and some of what I would say we've exchanged. I feel like always our mentoring partnership's been an exchange. And I feel just listening to what you were sharing, and that I really only want to say that I think fundamentally my work has always been, my practice has always been exploring relationship to ourselves, to each other, and that can be human other or more than human other, exploring our relationship to self and other and place through direct experience in the body, through our skin, through touch, through our sense of motion and movement outside us, inside us, our breath, the exchange of breath with plant, with animal, with self, food, gut. I think that's all I want to say, really. That's the heart of my, always what informs me and guides me in my relationship to you, Vivian, to the sun, the moon, the earth, my sheep, my husband, my mother, my godchildren, my cats, my colleagues, and really in workshop to have the opportunity always to share this work through practice with others in workshop is really fundamental to how I do what I do.
Yeah, that's an ongoing conversation. It's so enriching. I think when you were just sharing, I was trying to remember what drew me to the practices that you share in somatics, and I really don't remember exactly how it all started, except that I think as you were talking, I was going back to the woods on the Dartington estate, and walking through the woods and just being really present in my sensory body and really noticing, how the air feels and how the footsteps feel on the ground, and also being very present with what emotionally was going on with me. A lot of that year for me was very emotional, and finding comfort in nature and finding comfort in the senses, and just being very present with them. And I think that awakened for me the curiosity around the power of our sensory awareness. And I remember that, I don't know why it stood in my, I do know why it stands out in my memory. But I remember one specific time when in our work groups at the college, because I was a student and Roz was a contractor, I guess. Not that that matters, but we had work groups every morning, and we'd go gardening, or you would be cooking, or you would be going to clean, and Roz would lead the cleaning a lot of the times, and we were cleaning toilets together and bathrooms. I just remember that. And we just had great conversations. I always enjoyed being around you, and have such a calming presence. And I think one of the reasons that stands out is because a few years before that, there was a really long series on a German-French TV channel called Arte. which it was like a 13-part series about the power of intuition. And there was a woman in that, there was a woman in that who cleaned public bathrooms. And I don't know why it stood out to me so much, but she didn't use gloves. She just cleaned the bathrooms with so much love and attention. And that's what, I also don't know what it had to do with intuition, except that there was this homeless guy who she found sleeping in a toilet cubicle one day. And she asked, I know someone came up in their conversation, like, oh, why are you sleeping here? And he said, I just felt so safe. It was just such a calming, safe place for me. And I feel like she infused her energy into this place and the process of the cleaning and the attention she was giving to it. But so maybe that's the connection that I have. I know that we connected also over touch and exploring touch, the power of touch. There was an article I shared with you at one point that I had found. But yeah, so I would love to ask you how, and this is something I always struggle with, but how would you explain what somatics is to other people who have perhaps never come across it before in that way as somatics, with that term?
Thank you. What is somatic? I would say that somatics is a way of paying attention to how I sit, how I speak. I see you holding a cup, Vivian, how I hold my cup, how I swallow, how I drink my tea, how I get out of bed in the morning, how I clean a toilet, how I clean my teeth. And when I say paying attention, it's not to pay attention just in our visual thought process, in our cognitive process, but it's to pay attention to our inner processes, our inner sensory awareness of how I do what I do, not why I'm doing it or what I'm doing, but how I'm doing it, how much effort I'm using, how my breath is functioning, my sense of what I'm touching. Am I gripping the toilet brush or the mug that I'm drinking the tea, or am I gripping my jaw? Am I so into my thinking process that I'm wanting to be done with whatever it is, whatever activity I'm engaged with? I'm wanting to be finished with it before I've even started it. What can I do to support myself to be more present? To be present. So I can be thinking as well, planning, but also I can feel moment to moment my sensory exchange, my relationship to myself and to my world, to the activity I'm in, more lovingly. How can I be more loving in the way I connect with whatever I'm in connection with? Whether it's cleaning the toilet, changing the nappy, queuing in the grocery store, starting my car up when I'm late for work. Yeah. How can I be more easeful, more comfortable in how I hold the steering wheel of my car, in how I press the pedals, move the indicator. Yeah. Because otherwise, if we are simply, and I include myself when I say we, simply just giving all our energy to our thinking processes, it's such a pervasive way of knowing the world that we start to tighten up. It's so pervasive, this tightening up, this holding, this wanting to be done with something. I'm late, I want to be there, I want to get here, I want to get this, I want to have this meal cooked and be eating it. I want to have done this washing. I want to have washed up already before I've even started. I want this certificate in this course I'm doing before I've even started it. And then we start to get so restricted. It's such a restrictive way of being. That's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
We use so much energy in this holding, restrictive, wanting to be somewhere before we've even started something. So somatics is a practice supporting us to begin to feel again, to feel more sensitively how I connect with myself, with my husband, with a seed I'm planting,
Mm-hmm.
with my sheep.
Yes, when you're always thinking of the next thing or being done, for me, it's like this forward motion, and gets very kind of tight up here.
Yeah.
And I know
I can feel it now.
Yeah.
Just talking about it.
Like,
a little tightening in my throat, a little dryness coming along. Yeah.
And so it's important to tune into that. It's at Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen, Body Mind Centering founder, who says, for every thought, it's the thinking body, or Mabel Todd. For every thought, there is a reaction in the body. There is a muscle that moves. So for every thought you have, and that's why it's important to be aware of how you are shaping your day, really, and your field around you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about, sorry, if you wanted to say something, go ahead. In response to that.
I think I just want to say what's really important to me is choice, is the freedom to choose. Because I think I just want to also acknowledge that sometimes it's okay to tighten up.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about being aware of tightening up and saying, do I want this for myself right now? Is this, actually, I feel and I'm tightening up now. Actually, I'm squishing and or do I need to tighten up, or do I need to hold my jaw? Do I need to grip the toilet brush? Can I use a little less? Just this more sensitivity to feeling that I have a choice, that I'm not just patterned into one way of doing something that's maybe doesn't always serve me, that pattern, that human beings have the potential to be in so many different ways, to engage with ourselves and the world in so many different ways. There's so much variety and choice that we can access more than any other being on this planet. We have consciousness.
Yes.
To be more conscious. Yeah, and then to choose what feels right for you. How do I know? Yeah.
Mm. Yes, thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about something. You said the word way. Somatics is a way, and I know that you sometimes or always spell it WAIE, which is Old English. And if you could just remind me why you do that. What is the meaning behind that?
So the word way, W-A-Y, was originally spelled W-A-E-I in Old English. And I've come to associate the W-A-I-E with a way of knowing myself and the world in this work at a walking pace. So it relates to a way of knowing the world through walking, through there's many ways of walking, and there's still tracks and pathways across this region where I live in the UK that's referred to as ways. And they can denote an old trading route, a pilgrim way. And for me, there's something about the process of walking as a way of knowing that brings us more into the experiencing moment. So when I talk about ways of knowing, it's an experience of knowing, to experience knowing. Because we know from very, very early on in evolutionary terms that our senses, all our senses of taste and touch and sound and sight and temperature and weight and inner movement, our kinesthetic sense, our life sense, developed to function at a walking pace. Over millennia, we've developed to function. And if we go back really through our phylogenetic development, we could say this walking pace. And it's been very abrupt for us, this shift, to know ourselves, to communicate through, to travel, through bikes, cars, and then computer technology. This very rapid way of communication, of exchange, of being in relationship with ourselves, with each other, in the world. And I'm curious to support my system. I've discovered just through walking again with no agenda. For many years, I just walked. I just would go out walking from a somatics perspective, and not rushing walking, not walking and chatting with someone, not walking to look at plants or to tick off a tracking route or a climb. I used to be a rock climber, and not to get into that sort of agenda, but just to walk, to experience walking. Yeah, to experience something that you shared earlier when you were in the woods at Dartington. The breath, the trees, the soft squidgy needles of the ground, this beautiful, underneath. So I talk a lot about ways of knowing, and I use the word W-A-I-E of knowing. In a way, it's living it. It's the experiencing of knowing.
I like to use a quote in my email signature that I came across, which supposedly Albert Einstein said, which is, you never know with these things, like people attribute quotes to people and they never even said them. But let's just say Albert Einstein said this. And he said, let's see if I don't butcher it. Knowledge is experience. Everything else is just information. So,
yeah, thank you. Yeah. That resonates.
Yeah. I felt, and then the other one I really like is by Barry Lopez, and it's "The moment is an invitation." So every moment is an invitation. And as you say, to choose how you want to be in the world, how you want to respond to something, to choose awareness of how you are or not. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I had another question lingering somewhere, but it's gone right now. I would love to know more about what brought you to somatics, like what brought you to the work you're doing. And somatics is also a broad term for many different modalities within the field. And I mean, Roz can share herself, but you specialize, so to speak, in body-mind centering, which is Bonnie Bainbridge-Cohen, who I just referred to earlier. She sort of created that whole field. And then there's also Elsa Gindler work and sensory awareness, which came from that. That's a whole other field. And I guess they're different approaches. And maybe we have time to talk about those a little bit more and the similarities and the difference between the two, but and how you integrate them. But I would love to know more about if you're willing to share about your journey to how you came to where you are, and as much or as little as you want to share about that.
Yeah.
Your way.
Yeah, a good question. Yeah, my way. Yeah. Well, I mean, since I was very little as a child, I just wanted to be outside, to live outside. I remember walking with my grandma from 6, 7 years old, and we'd be what's now called foraging, but we'd go out and before lunch and just pick some few things from the hedgerows. And I remember lying in the fields with my grandma. We grew up here in Devon, and looking at the clouds, and she'd tell me stories about the clouds. And so she was a big influence on me. And she used to walk a lot. I used to just go walking with her. So I think that was a really big influence on me. And just being outside a lot with my brothers, building camps. And I kind of always liked to make a space, create a space to be in outside. Yeah. And never wanted to come in. So I think there was something really, it set a real tone in well, maybe tone's not the right word, but it really fed my heart. It really fed my soul. And I love to move. I really struggled at school. I really struggled with the sort of sitting down, the being still. I was often told that I was a fidget, and yeah, I had I found education difficult here in the UK, how I was educated, and being at school, and yeah. And through my early years and into my teenage years, I loved running, and I did a lot of dance and horse riding, and we had a lot of animals, and gradually my interests moved towards dance. But the kind of dance when I was young, the 70s and 80s here, it was very codified, ballet or sort of jazz and musical theatre, tap, and kind of dance. There was no improvisation. There was very little activity on the floor, barefoot. And then Well, yes, to cut a long story short, I found myself, and it was more a case that I found myself doing a dance degree at a dance conservatoire in London in the beginning of the 90s. And yeah, and that was my first experience of somatics. That was my first introduction to somatics. And you know, I found it very difficult when I first came to somatics. I found it very challenging. Touch was very difficult for me. But gradually, after leaving university, I came to explore a bunch of practices. Just kind of following a path. I'm not quite sure why I kept coming back to this practice, but through different contemporary dance practices, and I found myself really gravitated towards Qigong, a particular practice of Qigong, which I practiced for many years. And I explored in quite a lot of depth the Alexander technique for a while, and Feldenkrais technique for a while. And all of them were very challenging. This slowing down, this business of slowing down was very challenging for me, to be still. But I particularly remember I had two very good teachers, my Qigong teacher, and who used to be a dancer originally before he started to practice Qigong and train as a Qigong master. And my Alexander teacher, who was also from theatre. So I had a ground of previous experience that I could relate to them with. They really inspired me. They really supported me to just begin to discover. And I started to really experience the most extraordinary changes in my functioning, in lying, constructive rest, or in standing, which was the Qigong practice, in breathing. And it was so liberating. Just these glimpses, just little moments. And it felt like magic. Of course, it's not magic. I know that now. But at the time, it was so very different to any approach to moving that I'd come across before. And it felt mysterious and it felt magic to me. You know, I grew up in a family of scientists. I really wanted to understand this intellectually. What do we do? What's happening to me? To make sense of these glimpses of this magic cognitively. Because I was pretty skeptical, really, looking back at myself. So gradually, over the years of these experiences, this practice, being outside as well, my desire to be outside, my desire to be in relationship with plant, tree, animal, how to satisfy these two needs of moving and relationship to other. Because a lot of this experience of somatics early on was in London. I was in London. And then, sorry?
We have that in common because I lived in London for so long. Too.
Yeah. And it was very challenging for me, London. Yes. But eventually I moved back to Devon, and the next two really big moments for me were meeting Bonnie Bainbridge-Cohen. I was lecturing in dance and somatics and choreography at Dartington College of Arts. And I had a little bursary to go to Brussels and do some work with Bonnie. She was teaching in Brussels. And that was a very big moment for me. That was, gosh, the early noughties. I can't remember now, 2002, 3, something like that.
Oh.
And that really changed my life, because that was the moment that I found a way of understanding this practice cognitively through the science of anatomy and physiology, as well as understanding the experience, the intuitive, experiential sense of it that was more subjective and unique to me. And suddenly there was, for me, it really was like a light going on. It was like, aha.
Yes.
And so it was that moment. And then a couple of years later, I went to Schumacher College, which she mentioned earlier, as a student, and studied holistic science, a module in holistic science. And again, this was another very reaffirming moment that brought together the ways of knowing through intuition, cognition, sensing, feeling. And it was like, wow, my way, my weird and wonderful way of being in the world, which I'm deeply kinesthetic. You know, I have a bunch of disabilities. I struggle very much with word and word processing, and those sort of ways of expressing ourselves, I guess you could say, the visual. Yeah, so it was very exciting for me. It was very liberating. These two different, essentially different, but now they're not different. They're just different ways we can bring our consciousness to knowing ourselves through measuring and weighing, and or through feeling and sensing ourselves in the world. Yeah, and so then I was really, really inspired and drawn to training in body mind centering. Yeah.
And where does the Elsa Gindler work come in there? Because I think you have a...
Yeah. So at the same time, when I was in the university sector, I started working with some colleagues at Exeter University and here in the UK. And they were bringing over a German teacher, a Gindler teacher, and I started doing intensives, first of all 2 or 3 days, and then longer intensives. And that was very beautiful, but we worked outside quite a lot. They were often in the summer. I remember doing a 10-day intensive once, and this very sensitive connection to experiencing the sensory exchange with the air, with the ground, with my breath. I remember one seminar, a 3-hour seminar, washing someone's feet with cotton wool, warm water, scented oils, just this very sensitive connection with plant, grass, another person. Yeah, that exchange. It was just, I mean, I can almost, it touches me, that work, so deeply.
Yes.
That we can be so gentle and caring of each other without a conversation, without words, without having to define why or what, without any agenda. But we can just have this very sensitive, loving, gentle exchange. And to have the opportunity to open myself up to being in the world in that way. Yeah, I mean, it's just sits with Bonnie's work and body mind centering for me beautifully. The two, they are very married together now. And so the being outside is less of a practice in the BMC work, my experience of it and the training. So it was very much through the Gindler and the Schumacher work, which was working with phenomena outside of us, understanding the world outside of us by being outside in the world with the plant, with a tree. Stephen Harding's gravity meditation. So, yeah.
Mm.
That was a very long rambling.
Oh, I loved it. It's so beautiful.
Journey. Are you going to edit this?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Because it chops it up too much. I'm not editing.
Okay. So if people are still listening, then you deserve
I am, so.
a medal.
Oh, no, that was really beautiful. Thank you. There's a few things that I resonate with from my experience that I just wanted to share briefly. I'll start at the end with the holistic science approach, the phenomenology, the being with a plant, and really what we did. I mean, I got a taste of it because I did a slightly different program at the college, but we had Stefan teach us too, and the other guy. Oh my gosh, I've forgotten his name. His face and his voice is so present. Very, very slow, gentle.
Phil,
yes. What was his last name again?
Phil Francis.
Phil Francis, yes, Philip Francis.
Yeah.
What a gentle person. But I found that really challenging. I just didn't know what I was doing, and my mind kept jumping in and thinking, like, what's the point of this? And it was just so difficult for me.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And also, and that's where it is a practice to slow down and to really come into the presence of what is that another being. It's a plant or a river, or but you have to have something in yourself already to open up to that, I think. And that's what somatics helps to come into the body, and to start to appreciate just how much is going on. And what I've been sharing recently is, like, even if you're doing nothing, so much is still happening. But yeah, and I was reminded of the first time that I attended a somatics workshop was one of yours. And I know I've shared this with you, but I remember like crawling on the floor and like moving really slowly and sitting or lying. And I don't know how long it went, maybe 2 hours. And everyone walked out of it and was like, oh, that was amazing, don't you think? And I was like, I didn't get it. I don't know what the hell were we doing? Like 2 hours of just crawling around on the floor. No, I don't think this is for me. And so I totally like resonate with that challenge of like slowing down and just being in the moment, being with something you don't understand. You don't know what the point is. Your mind keeps jumping in, like I said, and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's so interesting how like a year later, it was probably about a year later, I was so absorbed by the work and that magic that you talked about that was happening. I remember very clearly there was one moment we were working together, and for years I've been trying to meditate the traditional way, which is sitting, trying to, I don't know, just calm the mind or whatever. And
there's that word, trying.
Exactly, yes. And I noticed that I was completely in the moment without trying. And I was just, it was such an aha moment for me. I think I must have been lying down. I was like, wow, this feels so amazing. And I was just it was so blissful.
Yeah.
And every time we met as well, like if we had lunch together afterwards, and I remember you sharing things from your garden and like from the hedgerows that so tasty. Everything was so tasty.
Yeah.
Everything tasted so good. and still does when I'm attend a longer workshop. I look forward to having my food afterwards because I know it's going to be full of life because I'm so much more present for it. Yeah.
That's so interesting. What's that you say that? It's so interesting. It's not just what we're eating, but it's how we're eating. When we're a little bit more slowed up or open, or this whole gut brain. I mean, it's such an incredible organism. Our gut brain, our gut. Like over, I don't know, most of our immune systems in our gut, and all these. Like I think it's 2.5 kilograms of bacteria potentially in our gut. I mean, it's incredible. This whole world, this whole universe here, and how's our gut respond to the point that, I mean, we know now we have taste receptors through our gut.
I didn't know that.
25 something, I'd have to check the text now, but something like 25 taste receptors through our gut that register the bitters, how important the bitter flavor is, and how we've moved towards the sweet. Almost for many of us, bitter is too bitter.
Yes.
Actually, yeah. So I'm so curious, and I remember you sharing an idea in a workshop exchange with a few of us on somatic eating.
Yes.
I think it's so interesting that
we all ate.
And it's so interesting that you bring it again. To this conversation.
Loudly.
Because so many people with IBS and colitis and Crohn's disease, all these digestive disorders that seem to be so prevalent for so many of us now. And maybe it's not about what we eat, what we put in us, but actually how we receive what we eat, something. Maybe you can say more about that. But it's inspired what you shared. And I'm really curious about it.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'll be exploring more of. Like, I do it all the time for myself, but I haven't shared much about it recently. But I just want to mention briefly what you also talked about, what the experiential anatomy is, which is very much, I think, in body mind centering, right? Which is what you were just talking about, the gut, and just knowing all of this scientific information about the body. And really tuning into that in your own body. That's what I find so magical about it. And I often think, like, what biology we're taught like this, where you learn about the heart, and then you are invited to put your hand over your heart and just to feel in your own body, like your heartbeat. And just to know, this is where my heart is, right here. And this is where my liver is. For the longest time, I had no idea where my organs were. I had an idea, of course, where my intestines were, but was my stomach on my left or my right, and where exactly? And there's so much we don't know about ourselves and that we read. And I know Thomas Hanna, who's the person who coined the term somatics, as far as I've read, in the 80s or 70s. But he talks about the first person perspective and the third person perspective. First person perspective being you and your own experience, and how each of us has a unique experience which no one else can see or feel into. And then there's a third person experience, which is, or perspective rather, which is like reading a textbook about yourself. And that's what we do in school. And it's kind of absurd because we're right here. Like, we're right here to learn from all the time. And it's not at all touching.
No.
I almost think it's kind of disgraceful. And then to talk about the opposite of that, what you were sharing, and what were you sharing about? And you just reminded me of, the washing the feet, and taking 3 hours to just be in the space with another person, with the process, with the act of just caring and loving. And that's something else that the work is really inspired in me is this realization of how sacred it is to just be in a space, to just experience, and to really give something your full attention and love. And it might just be having a sip of water and being really present with the water running down your gut tube into your tummy. And that's what I love. And when you were talking about the feet, and I was very moved just listening to you. And, yeah. I love this work. It's just so, and it's so hard to put into words. I just don't know. This is the challenge, because you have to really experience it. You have to be open to experiencing it. And it's a slow process. Like both of us, neither of us really was able to immediately latch onto it, right? As you know, but something was there. There was something there that kept us going, and it's an ongoing journey. But it's yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something, it's really something that is all this life. I mean, I'm opening my arms here. I'm surrounded by trees and streams and orchard, and the wind is blowing and the sky and the sunlight. It's like a universal, innate, inherent intelligence that's just inside us. It's outside us. We are an interconnected whole with this incredible, unique planet we call Earth, that we have evolved to be who we are in this moment. There's organelles in our cells that we share with every life force on this planet. Plant, animal, worm, cat, hawthorn tree, we all have. Potentially, there's in some of the texts, they suggest these organelles are the earliest cells that we all engulfed, all life. We all share this essence, this life force. And these organelles, they are our life force. The energy of the cell, of every cell, plant cell, animal cell. And I think that's something we unconsciously recognize something when we touch that, whether it's somatics or it's mindfulness, or I know you teach forest bathing, or wild swimming is very popular now, or something. We are touched by this universal, innate intelligence. And you use the word sacred. For me, that is sacred. That's sacred. And even though it's challenging and difficult to reconnect with that, somehow it's such a pull in us. That magic.
And getting a glimpse of it every now and then, it's enough to keep us going.
Enough to draw us back. This coming and going.
Yes.
It's time. So much of our life is disconnected from that now. For so many of us, we're asked not to be connected. We're asked to be disconnected in order to function in these environments that we've created to learn and teach in, to heal in. Our healing professions are, so disconnected from this essence, this life force, this reality of who we really are.
And that's where a lot of grief comes in, for me anyway. It's very sad to think of that, to know that a lot of people, I mean, I'm no saint by any means as well. Every day I need a reminder to check in and slow down and just become present and connect, truly connect. But it's so sad how a lot of people don't even really have a chance to do that, maybe just because of how much they have to be on the treadmill just to survive. And then how many people choose, maybe unconsciously choose, not to engage. Yeah. But well, that's a whole nother conversation. Did you want to add something to that?
Well, I guess I would always say, we can only change ourselves. We can't change other people. And yeah, it's something about feeling it in myself. To feel it in yourself, to discover for yourself what's there. That's something that's really central to somatics.
Mm-hmm.
Is this discovery for myself. It's just there. This freedom. In any context, in even the most darkest, challenging moments. It certainly saved me. I'm not sure where I'd be now.
It's about keeping that curiosity, that mind of curiosity.
Yeah, I think it's about trust as well. It's about trusting something, that glimpse you have inside, that you feel inside, trusting your own unique experience, trusting it, really trusting it. Oh yeah, this is me. This is what I feel. Not what Rosalyn feels, not what Vivian feels, not what my teacher feels, not what my work colleague feels or my husband, but this is me. This is what I feel. Yeah. And how does that guide me? How do I know?
Yeah. And then seeing what unfolds from there. Thank you.
Yeah, imagine living our whole life that way.
Yeah. It's courageous. And
yeah,
it's not easy. And to cultivate that trust.
Yeah.
I'm very slowly starting to do that. It takes a lot. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to talk with you, really.
I really appreciate you sharing so openly and generously. And if it's not inspiring for anyone else, it is for me. And
well, likewise, it's an exchange again. It's been inspiring to have that exchange with you. So thank you for your questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to close here. So I'll say bye.